Hello, this is Angie Yingst, and you're listening to Centered, grounded conversations about the metaphysical. Blessed August, witches. It's Angie Yingst with your monthly tarot, earth, and sky medicine reading for August 2023. So this month is pretty interesting. Venus, Saturn, Neptune, Pluto, and Chiron are all retrograde. And then by the time we end up in September, Mercury and Uranus will also be stationing retrograde, which is a pain in your Uranus. This is the second of the Mercury retrogrades in Earth signs. And that's also its own little thing. But, we'll probably talk about that more at the end of the month because September will be more affected by that. But things will be moving slowly. And often that means we have to go back and look at our past stories, our experiences, our traumas, and kind of look at what needs to be rewritten, re-examined, reapproached. So that can be good. That can be hard. But, the thing about August, which is interesting, is there's like this amazing energy, and then there's the retrogrades. So that gives us a lot of opportunity to have victories in the work that we do on ourselves, the work that when we're processing the past or looking at how to break patterns. It really is a great time to kind of slow down and do that internal work. So if this is like a vacation month for you, that's great because I shouldn't say vacation month, but however many weeks you take for a holiday would be good as a slowdown and as a time to process what's happening. So August begins and ends with full moons. So that's right. We have a blue moon this month. And that's something that only takes place every couple of years. So the first full moon is today, August 1st, if you're listening to this on the 1st. And it's in the fixed air sign of Aquarius. The second is on August 30th, and that is going to be in Pisces. So we're starting here in Aquarius, which is really, it's one of the more complicated signs of the zodiac. I mean, it's a water bearer, but it's an air sign. And so it kind of sets itself up to be misunderstood in some ways. But maybe that's the point, because Aquarius is really the sign of the revolutionary, the independent thinker, the one who forges her or his own way. It is the genius, and Aquarius governs independent thinking. Okay, it governs the collective, but it also fights against the collective. It's the one that subverts the ordered paradigm while wearing giant platform sneakers, rave lights, and green hair, because it is the one that is having fun with doing that. So if you've ever met an Aquarius, they tend to have their own style, their own medicine, right? That's because Aquarius has two planetary rulers, not just one. It's guided by both Uranus and Saturn. So this really, the Uranus part really changes the tenor and quality of Saturn. So Saturn is very much about rules and structures and creating systems, right, that find stability. So it is the one that rules Capricorn, for example. So, that's a lot of work and a lot of that kind of very staid, serious energy. In Aquarius, that comes up in a different way because, first of all, we're dealing with air, so we're dealing with ideologies and sometimes social systems, things that are for the collective, right? So instead of Capricorn, which is for the self, Aquarius moves this out into a more collective. And then Saturn kind of has a little breathing room here because Uranus also has some, punk rock energy, right? Because Uranus breaks structures and rules. It is a planet of upheaval. So when you have structured Saturn and, like I like to call it, punk as fuck Uranus, it imbues Aquarius with the spirit of the revolutionary, okay? So during actual Aquarius season, I quoted Angela Davis, who is a double Aquarius, by the way, sun and moon, and she's an activist and a political abolitionist. And she really was a visionary. And I think Aquarians really can have that visionary ideal. They kind of change the world. And Angela Davis is definitely one of those. She said this, which I think is a perfect encapsulation of the Aquarius spirit. She says, you have to act as if it were possible to radically transform the world. And you have to do it all the time. Now, she's talking about working on a big scale. This is something you can apply to you. You have to act as if you can radically transform the world, your world. And you have to do it all the time. You have to always think you are absolutely able to change and transform and grow. So, I think that when we're looking at this, we're tending to ourselves. We're tending to dismantling our self-limiting beliefs. And this month is going to be a month that gives us plenty of opportunity to look at our relationship between the collective and the self. Okay? This full moon, first of all, is going to be a great one to do that in. And I talk about that a lot more in the full moon reading that I do for my membership group. But, when we're in Aquarius, we have to think of it as this fixed air sign. So when we think about fixed signs, they really do embody all that they can be in their element. Okay. So air signs connect us. They share ideas, they communicate, they think. Curiosity rules air signs, right? It guides our societal norms. And then when you apply the Aquarian part, which is fixed and believes itself, okay, definitions of things like success, power, freedom, they also become the societal systems that we have to dismantle. So we're even looking at what those terminologies mean in our lives. So when we look at our relationship with the group and the self and what is normal and what is not normal, what the individual needs versus what the collective needs, the creative, the mundane, or the sacred and the profane, we're also having to look at how do I even define that? What is profane for me? What is sacred for me? What is creative? What is mundane? So we're looking at all of those things. Aquarius also influences group dynamics. So it includes who leads the collective. How are we putting these people in power and why? And then it looks at how do we treat each other. So we're just looking at the whole system. So in the highest manifestation, Aquarius kind of helps us live our truth while honoring others. Even if our truths don't agree with theirs, how do we live in the collective? How do we have this compromise? This is not a society right now, and I'm talking about American society, where you see a ton of compromise. You don't see two sides coexisting peacefully. This is a volatile time, and the tension is in the air, like it's just constant. So Aquarius really has the power to help us dissolve the myth of separation if we want to. We need to make choices that empower everyone. So full moons are about release. And so on this full moon, basically you're being asked to look at patterns that keep showing up over and over again. And looking at how do you suppress who you are, your true nature, because it might not be accepted with the people around you. So, we're also looking at places in our life where we want to shift or we resist because we fear rejection. When we change, when we grow, it is obviously, we want to keep moving, right? We want to keep moving down our path. And sometimes those changes, like they're not what everybody wants. People are used to you being unhealthy if you're unhealthy, right? Like when I got into recovery, I remember my first sponsor saying, not everyone wants us to get sober. And that's mind-boggling to think about when you're like the one suffering so much. You're like, of course everybody wants my good. Yeah, everybody wants me to grow and be my highest self. But when you are, for example, I'm going to just use alcohol because that's what I'm talking about. But like when you're drunk, people know how to manipulate you. People know where you are. They know how to control you. You're down, And so not everybody's going to be comfortable, but do you want those people in your life? And that's what kind of Aquarius excels at. It shows you, hey, you're not here to please everyone. You're not here to seek everyone's approval. You're here to move down your spiritual path. So if you want to kind of move to that frequency or that vibration, to speak in truly woo-woo terms, you're going to have to release anything that blocks that energetic expression. So what does that mean? Your authentic vibration, the one that you want to hold, the one that you want to go to, that's the one we have to look at and kind of say, okay, I want to do this. Well, my job doesn't correspond with that, or my living situation, or, what I'm, the habits I'm engaging in, watching Netflix for 4 hours a night might not match the vibration you want to hold, right? Not to say that watching Netflix is bad. It's just that anything can be used to block your true expression if you let it. So we're just looking at those things, because Aquarius, it's not even that we have to go like, oh, I really want to look at this. This is just something that is going to happen. So, the sun's in Leo. So this is good because Leo is the sun's home sign. And so when Leo comes in, it really is the spotlight, right? So it lets us see things. It's like the sun is shining over our shoulder. And so it really wants you to embrace yourself, to love yourself. Leo is it has a reputation of like being, I want to say self-centered, but that's not really, that's kind of like the negative part. But it does have the reputation of being the center of it, wanting to be the center of attention. And the truth is that we do need to be the center of attention. Our shrinking puritanical ways don't always help us evolve, especially like if, in American society, we have this like puritanical thread that's like delay gratification, be small, that kind of stuff. Leo actually loves to bring attention to who we are, like what makes us great, what makes us creative, what makes us what kind of genius are we? Leo shows you that. It also affords us the ability to have that sun shining on anything that needs to, any of those blockages that we want to get rid of. So it really is a time to look at how we can grow into our highest self, how we can be authentically us. Okay, so Venus retrograde it happened at the end of July. And so this retrograde in Venus in Leo is basically going to hit its climax August 9th to the 22nd. And this is really when we will look at how we talk and express ourselves authentically in our relationship. So I really think that this is a time that we're also going to be looking at those structures within our relationship that we've set up. Venus retrograde really does help us think about our cycles in relationships, especially in regard to self-sacrifice. So I really think that we can build our relationships in new ways. Does that mean that we're not going to have any arguments? No, that means you probably will have arguments, and looking at how you argue is probably one of the more important things. Okay, so we want to kind of build those relationships on what vibration we want to hold, like I talked about earlier. So August 16th is the new moon, and the new moon is in Leo, of course. So those are really a great lunation, because this is a time when you can really see your gifts and your talents and the way you want to share them out in the world. Okay, we have to really think about the collective versus the individual. Remember, we're kicking the month off this way. So even though we're not in Aquarius, we're still going to be working with that energy as we move through to the new moon. And then in the new moon, we really can see like, okay, this is who I am. And we get to like have some self-love fest if we want to, because Leo allows self-love fests a little more than other signs. So, we're going to kind of shift then into The sun moves into Virgo on the 23rd. And that's really where our energy becomes more productive, logical, efficient. So you're doing a lot of internal work before that. And then as we hit Virgo, this is all about the facts and the figures and doing the things we need, like paying attention to the details, right? To improve our systems, to kind of move more into your authentic self and change things. Okay. If you have any Virgo in your birth chart, then you'll kind of notice where those changes will be, right? So kind of look at which house they're in, and that'll tell you what part is going to work. On the same day, August 23rd, Mercury, which is the planet that rules Virgo, will station retrograde in Virgo for 3 weeks, always 3 weeks. But so until then, of course, we're dealing with all the Mercury retrograde stuff, which is delays, communication issues, adjustments that we have to make on like everything. So Virgo is really a sign about the details. Like it is a sign of particulars. So you want to find yourself paying attention and double, triple checking things, because Virgo is kind of, because it's mutable, it has that movement, right? It shifts and change. But one of the responses to that in Virgo is anxiety, right? So Virgo is the anxious earth sign. And what it is anxious about are all the little moving parts. And so that's why Virgos are great to have on a team, because they're looking at the little details that you might not be looking at. And so especially like I'm a Capricorn, so I am a cardinal earth sign. So I look at the big picture, I'm moving forward. I'm doing things. I want to do things fast because we're like in that beginning part. Virgo slows us down and says, let's look at all these little moving parts, make sure they're perfect. Because if the chain is only as strong as its weakest link, right? So Virgo is the one that finds the weak link. Okay. Which is what's great about having some of these retrogrades in Virgo, because you are able to do work a little more efficiently. And I say that, and some people are like, Angie, I don't want to do work. Like, I am tired of work. I'm always working on myself. Yes, we are. But that's part of the spiritual path. And of course you can take breaks and stuff, but you never get out of your head. It's as light as you may pack, you're always going to take your baggage with you. And so we are really looking at retrograde times as like bringing up the triggers, so to speak, of our trauma and our shadow issues. And so that's why we end up having big transformations during retrogrades. And I know retrogrades get demonized, but it's because you have to slow down and you have to look at like, oh, I just went off on that person. Why? Why did I do that? The blue moon is on August 30th. It's, again, the second full moon of the month. It's in Pisces, which is a water sign, a mutable water. So it's very idealistic, very dreamy, very expansive. This is going to be a day that you're kind of looking at a bigger picture. Again, Pisces goes with the flow. And so it's a day when you can really do a lot of dream work. You can kind of go into fantasy world. You can go into like building castles in the sky. You don't have to be grounded in Virgo's energy. So look at where Pisces is ruled in your birth chart, like which house it's in, and that could be where you're kind of dreaming. It is really easy to find yourself like in delusion, so to speak. So just remembering we're not necessarily acting out of our daydreaming. We're just using it to guide where our true self is. So, this is a time to be creative. This is a time to paint. This is a time to pull cards and be in that dreamy, intuitive place that Pisces loves. Virgo is just always going to be working behind the scenes here, so you don't have to worry about that. So we are really going to kind of look at all of those things. I mean, I really actually think this blue moon is going to be a wonderful time to kind of put you in a dreamy place. It's like, this is what I want my vibration to be, and then kind of move into it. So here are the important astrological dates again. August 1st, full moon in Aquarius. August 16th, new moon in Leo. August 23rd, Virgo season begins. August 23rd, Mercury stations retrograde. And August 30th, we have another full moon in Pisces. So let's talk about the tarot of the month. This month, I pulled my card, which was interesting. I put it back in the deck. I shuffled again. I pulled it again. So the Queen of Pentacles it is. So this month, she's everyone's card, not just my card. Whenever we pull a core card, it's about embodying our triumphs and attributes of the cards, and then watching for the shadowy aspects. And the shadow aspects are really, like, we deal with both. Sometimes we really feel the card, and sometimes we're like, that card is, I hate it, I don't want it. And then we kind of wrestle with that. The Queen of Pentacles has this amazing, nurturing, mothering energy. She is Earth Mama. She is the queen of nature. And, I was actually just telling the women in my circle for my membership group about insights with my own healing, and how over the last year, the things I'm drawn to are really inner child healing. Like first I bought a stuffed animal that I hug and sleep with sometimes. Then I bought a yo-yo, which I freaking love to play with. I was pretty decent at yo-yo when I was a kid, so it was like fun to have a yo-yo. I'm going to buy a kite. I got a pool, and just allowing joy and playfulness to come out has been something I wrestle with, and actually I'm not very playful sometimes, so, but when I get into that place, it also allows my inner mother to come forth and change the way I was mothered, So I have an inner mother, so do you. And, I have a very good relationship with my own mother, but it was a different time, and my mother changes too. And I think we have to remember that if we have a continuing relationship with our mother, and one that is decent, and we have good communication, then we know that the mother we were raised with is different than the mother that is now a grandmother, for example. They're just different. And so then I have to figure out, who is my inner mother? My own mother is an immigrant. So she had other concerns, that she was thinking about all the time. I don't have those concerns. So the way I was mothered was on that lens, which is lovely to have. I'm not complaining about it. But I do think that we have to figure out, how do we need to be mothered now? Okay. And so play, which was something I did a lot of as a kid, I did it a lot with not as much regulation as I would want, So I have to say, okay, time to stop playing. It is time to make the dinner. It's time to do the laundry, but I don't say it in a way it's like, why are you playing? I'm not shaming. So with healing, especially if we have mother wounds, we can shift out of emulating our own mother's mothering. Or if we've been recreating it, sometimes our inner voice is based on the meanest person in the room, and so if you weren't blessed with a mom like me, and you're dealing with really deep mother wounds, then you can learn how do you mother your kids? How do you mother the self? If you're abusive in your head, the way you talk to yourself, then consider a wholesale rejection of your mother's mothering, and create a mothering that's wholly your own, one that sets healthy boundary, one that holds us accountable without shame or fear, and one that nurtures our growth, one that's consistent and present. Okay. She is me, right? My inner mother is me, an aspect of myself that cares for me, that loves me, that gives me boundaries, that helps me learn how to take care of my body, my mind, my heart, my soul in equal measures. A lot of us that have like eating disorders and stuff, like we sometimes put the body above the heart, Eating disorders hurt our heart, disordered eating. And so we have to figure out, okay, my heart is as important as my body. My mind is as important as my body. And so we develop this inner mothering. Sometimes we do that through therapy. Like our therapist helps us learn how to talk to ourselves and be gentler with ourselves. Sometimes it's other women in circles, or it's our wives if we're married, it's our, partners, it's our friends. We hear them talking to their children, to talking to us. We talk to our friends in gentle ways. And so why don't we become our friend, become our own mother, all those things? And, I always think of like, how would I say this to my kid? How would I say this to my animal? How would I say this to my best friend? And then I try to say that way to myself. Am I always successful? No. We have long, deep patterns that we've set on how we talk to ourselves. So this month, we're kind of asking the Queen of Pentacles to come in for guidance. And she's, of course, going to be earth-based. All right. She's going to look at the medicine of the earth. She's going to look at getting out in nature, of putting down the devices, of going outside, of connecting with the earth. So those are going to always be the recommendation when you have a Queen of Pentacles as a monthly guide. Okay. Now we're in fiery Leo at the beginning of the month, but when we move into Virgo, this is really going to match up. And that's really when we're going to get to heart of like everything is retrograde. So she is a wonderful mother, caregiver, nurturer. The Virgo is a caring caregiver. Her opposite sign is Pisces. And so she draws a lot of that sort of watery energy in. She's always holding the family together. And she pulls in like past victories to create this safe space. Okay, so she's about reminding the family of who they are. This is what our family believes in. I say that a lot to my kids. Our family holds kindness and compassion as our ultimate goal. And so I'm like, are you acting in a way that's kind and compassionate? And so the Queen of Pentacles is the reminder for the family of who they are. What is their legacy? What are they all about? And who are their ancestors? And how do we honor that? There's a like little rabbit on the end of the card, and that's a symbol of creativity, abundance, fertility. So she does kind of nurture her people, and she cradles like a gold coin, which means that she also nurtures the family's success, the wealth, the material success, but also whatever success and who they are. Queen of Pentacles has lots of plants around her. So these luscious plants and flowers are her connection to nature and fertility and abundance. Her throne is carved with pears, which is a symbol of fertility. It's particularly a symbol of the goddess Pomona, which is the goddess of fruit trees in Italy. She has goats around her, which is a symbol of Capricorn, because she symbolizes all of the earth signs in the zodiac: Capricorn, Virgo, and Taurus. She also has angels and other symbols around her of her connection to, the other world, guides, all of those beautiful kind of like family things. The Queen of Pentacles is cautious. Okay, she's conservative. She's not politically conservative necessarily, but she's pretty risk averse. She stays close to home, close to her center, close to nature. She's very practical, trustworthy, stable, serious. She's focused on the family. So, behind her are all these fields and flowers, and they show her discipline and her work. She to have a garden, it takes a lot of work and a lot of organization, right? You have to constantly be working with nature and then supplementing what nature isn't providing. Like if there's not enough rain, you're watering, right? So there is water in her background indicating that she has an emotional or psychic nature, and the mountains shows that she's been through challenges and she continues to persevere. She's also stable. Mountains are stability. So she's very serious and confident and realistic and grounded. Now, her shadow aspects are exactly what you imagine when someone stays close to home and nurtures everyone. She can be codependent. She can be anxious, insecure, moody. She can be the victim martyr. She can be controlling, or she could be quite the opposite, undisciplined and moody. She can blame others, stubborn, unwavering, basically the opposite of the nurturing, which is distant, cold, critical. So she can vacillate wildly between different opinions when she's in her shadow aspect, and can be kind of wishy-washy if she's on the not controlling end. She can be indecisive and wishy-washy. So you can see how both these aspects are really shadowy. So her shadow is really that she's cut off from earth and cut off from nurturing. One thing that we talk about with nurturing is like it kind of has this allusion to attachment, right? Like she's, very attached. And really it's not attachment, it's nurturing. Attachment can be healthy in some ways and it can be controlling in others. So think of it in the non-attachment way. I have this book called Buddhism for Mothers, which I got when my children were born. And it talks about how to practice non-attachment with your children. And it really is about kind of allowing them to unfold. And so thinking of it that way, like when your shadow aspects are unleashed, we're thinking about the unhealthy attachments that we have, right? How are we holding strong? How are we not allowing things to unfold naturally, pushing our agenda? In tarot symbology, the Queen of Pentacles is the water of earth. So queens are always water and pentacles are earth. So that's Queen of Earth or water of earth. So nurturing stability, flowing earth. Very weird, right? But it's kind of like looking at living in harmony with the earth and living in harmony with each other. And so when we work with the Queen of Pentacles, we can also think about our own relationship with the earth. How are you a steward of the earth? How are you living in harmony with the earth? How are you sitting on the earth? Are you grounding? How are you embodying this queen energy, this mother energy within your life? And so this really does cross gender lines. But if you are male and you're listening to this and you're like, I don't relate to any of this mother shit, you can basically say like, yes, you do. You have that nurturing ability. All men do. You're looking at more of the moon or the lunar aspects of the self, your intuitiveness, your nurturing, your creativity. How are you moving in? So if I'm talking about mothering and you're like, I don't relate because I'm not a mother, you are a mother. You're a mother either to pets, to animals, to your craft, to music, if you're a musician, to your art, if you're an artist. You are creating. And so the mother is always taking masculine. And I don't want to break this down in really vulgar ways, but the sperm is the masculine and the egg is the feminine. So when the masculine and feminine come together, they create the child. And that's where we bring the masculine and feminine together. So we can look in the high heart area if you are a healer. And the high heart area is a place that Katrina Raphael talks about in her 4th book. And she works in this place that's between the throat and the heart. So it's up like almost like in the shoulder, like little less than the shoulders, coming in a little bit, but in the shoulder area. And on the left-hand side, she works with light blue. So she's working with like angel light. You can work with smithsonite. You can work with celestite. Any of those light blue. And I'm not talking about turquoise. I'm talking about light blue. So blue lace agate is another one. And then in the right-hand side, you're working with bright orange. So I use orange kyanite a lot, but you can use vanadinite, you can use carnelian. And those two areas are coming together to kind of bring in the masculine and feminine. So if you have too much masculine, you might be feeling like that's pulling. And just notice, like, do you have these pains in your shoulders? I currently have one in my right hand side. So trying to bring in more of that masculine energy, though I don't really need more masculine energy. Let's be fair. Okay. So we're just looking at who's our inner voice and how do we blend the high heart areas, the masculine and feminine, the yin and the yang together so that we can both be our inner mother and our inner father. So we want to respond with love and kindness to ourselves. Kindness and compassion is our family value. So that's what we're looking at. Now let's talk about the earth medicine of the month, which is valuable when we're working with Queen of Pentacles. We're really going to be working with this plant medicine. And so I, again, like shuffled. And again, dandelion came up and then I put it back in and it fell out when I was shuffling. I was like, all right, dandelion. Again, dandelion is our unsung hero of the witch's garden. It's found in nearly every corner of the world. It's been used for thousands of years. And yes, like it's labeled a weed, but come on, like that's just a term of abuse. A weed is just a matter of perspective. It is a survivor because it's one of the most versatile and humble healers we have. So every single part of the dandelion can be used from root to flower. And it's been used for centuries. Just don't spray your dandelions if you're going to use them, okay? You can use the leaves, which are eaten raw. They're steamed, they're fried, they're blanched, they're juiced. You can use the flowers, again, raw, fried. You can use them to make wine. The root can be dried, ground, or roasted. I love roasting dandelion root. It is an amazing coffee substitute. I use it a lot because I'm very sensitive to caffeine. So I end up using roasted dandelion root tea. And I get one from Traditional Medicinals, which is excellent. But it is really great as a stimulant for the digestive system and for the urinary organs. You can make a tincture from the tops or the roots, and all parts of the plant contain this bitter, milky juice latex that's used for medicinal properties. And that's, a lot of people are like, I don't like dandelion leaves, right? Because it's got that bitterness to it. So sometimes taking the root, like in the tea, is good. But when you combine it with citrus, the flowers are used to make dandelion wine, which is also, it is a traditional ingredient root beer, if you didn't know that. So magically, we know that dandelion has lots of superstitions, right? Any 7-year-old will tell you, blow on a dandelion puff and those seeds are going to carry your wishes. Put it under your chin and you'll be rich. Some of those legends are great, but dandelion has medicinal properties. The sap of the stems can be used for warts. The leaves can be dried and made into a tea for digestion. The tincture is used to help with the liver. And so some people use dandelion to enhance psychic abilities. Scott Cunningham uses the dandelion roots for divination and prophetic dreaming. So in some belief systems, dandelion is associated with growth and transformation because these little dandelion flowers turn into hundreds of seeds. And they really can repopulate everything. There's also a connection to getting rid of bad habits. So dandelion is good for kind of moving on or releasing. And because they're so adaptable, they also work with if you're trying to call in resilience and strength and overcome adversity, they're great. They are sometimes associated with Aphrodite because of her connection to the bees. And it's also connected to the underworld by association of the goddess Hecate. So I wanted to tell you a little bit more about dandelion, just how to gather them and use them. So gathering dandelion roots can be a little difficult. Their roots are very long and tenacious. So if you've ever tried to weed a dandelion, you know this. There are actually really long stemmed picks that are I don't know what you call them. They're long and they have a fork at the end. And they're used to pick dandelions. I have one. So you go under the plant and then kind of pull them up. They are really survivors. So they have long roots. So when you gather the dandelion roots, this is what I suggest doing. Use a small shovel and go around the roots. So just loosen the soil before you try to pull it out, because otherwise it'll break. It's sometimes easier if there's a rain. After a rain, kind of look for the dandelions. Now, dandelions, there's not a ton of dandelions right now, but you can still see the plants and the leaves in your grass or whatever. As long as you're not spraying, you can do this. You're not using weed killer, because that probably isn't, it's going to seep into the roots first, right? So sometimes, when you're kind of talking about doing them, again, wait for a rain, dig around them, and then pull with the puller thing. I don't know what you call it, dandelion unrooter. Then when you pull it out, trim the leaves off the root. Remember, you can use the leaves in salad or you can juice them, but when we're just roasting the roots, you can just pull them off if you don't want them. And then you clean the roots very well. They're going to be dirty. They're going to be full of soil, like all root vegetables. Okay, so put them in the strainer, remove all the dirt and soil, pick off all the fibrous, stringy bits. Okay, and then rinse them again. And then you're going to kind of dry them a little bit and we'll roast them. Okay, you put them in a roasting pan or a cookie sheet for at 355 degrees for 40 minutes. If you want them quicker, you can do them in a cast iron skillet on medium heat. And just roast the roots. You want them to be almost like a dark brown, okay? And then you kind of put your tea kettle on. Now, I like to, when I'm making fresh roasted root dandelion tea, I like to make a smoky quartz or a smoky citrine water, gem water, and then put that in my tea kettle and then boil do the tea kettle. And then you pour the water over the roots because it is perfect with smoky quartz. I love those two energies. They're very rooted. They're very grounding. You can also like put in cinnamon or cardamom. I like just the root, but kind of thinking about that would be great. So I like also to put a little oat milk in, and it's just a really great coffee substitute. Again, you can just buy them. Herbiary, which is Maya Toll's company, has one. Traditional Medicinals has one, and you can find that usually in the grocery store. And again, you can harvest your own. So let's talk about the crystals. So our first crystal is citrine. And citrine is a great stone for August. It really is like a traditional stone of August energy. It's a quartz. It has the yellow pigmentation from iron. And citrine is one of those stones a lot of people don't even understand the real color it is because they've only seen heat-treated amethyst. So heat-treated amethyst, if you put amethyst in an oven and bake it, I think it's only over 500, it turns into what we call like an amber kind of color. And that is heat-treated citrine. Now, most sellers know when they have heat-treated amethyst, and a lot of healers will use heat-treated amethyst as citrine. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's totally fine. I personally prefer the real stuff. So that yellow that comes from iron runs very pale to almost like a smoky quartz. So it is almost like a brown at times, not orangish. That's going to be your heat-treated amethyst. So there are really wonderful specimens of citrine coming out of Congo, and they're praised for this formation that they have that looks like a cathedral or a candle like formation. So a lot of little ones on the bottom and then the main point. And it usually has a smoky citrine kind of color. Congo citrine is just the freaking bomb. I love it. I also received some really beautiful Malawi citrine from my friend Chris, and he has his own crystal shop. So check him out, Tall Chris Crystals. His color is that color from Malawi is almost like a yellow, like a lemon yellow. It is really cool. And you can tell that it's not heat treated, you can really see. So I'll explain how you can tell in a minute. But there's also lots of like rainbows in the Malawi citrine, which makes it cool. But so citrine is a stone of manifestation. Okay. It's a stone of joy and happiness. So it works in the solar plexus. It strengthens the solar plexus. And it is a badass for moving you from can I to I can. All right. So it really helps break up blockages. It really helps strengthen like confidence and things like that. It is great if you're depressed or feeling hopelessness. It really works with empowerment, and it strengthens the liver, the stomach, any of those organs in the solar plexus region. It's great for recovering from abuse, whether it's mental, physical, spiritual, or psychological. So the geologic information, it's a silicon dioxide. It's got a hardness of 7. Yes, you can use it in water. It's got a trigonal crystal system, which I don't know if that matters to you. It's been used for, I think with our first recorded use of citrine is as far back as 300 BCE in Greece. Again, it's like a make it happen stone. So it really works great and synergistically with other silicates. And so those are like amethyst, clear quartz, rose quartz. I love using it with rose quartz personally. But it really helps you to bring that manifestation, like whatever you're dreaming, into reality. So use the natural citrine for that. Also helps with creativity. It helps overcoming unworthiness. Now, physical healing, you're going to use it for increased energy, again, for moving from out of depression or sadness or kind of that low energy stuff. It helps to raise that vibration up for stamina and energy. It supports metabolism. It supports the endocrine system as well. So let's talk about lab-treated amethyst sold as citrine. That color is going to be most concentrated at the tips. And then it'll be like white at the bottom. Like if it's on matrix, which it usually is, you can see, the white at the bottom. And then it's almost, we call it like Madeira citrine. It's like amber. Okay. It'll break apart a little easier because the temperatures, the high temps, weaken the stability. So heat treated citrine from Brazil is usually from a large amethyst geode. They just break it off and bake the crap out of it. The next stone that we're working with is dumortierite. And so dumortierite is an aluminum borate silicate. It's deep, deep blue. Okay. It is so beautiful in like dark, almost like navy blue. So it really is, a lot of people are like, I can't tell the difference between dumortierite, sodalite, or lapis. Well, lapis is almost like a royal blue, and dumortierite's like a navy blue. So it's really deep blue. And because it's a silicate, it's quartz. It grows really well with quartz. It works really well with quartzes. It was named after a paleontologist named de Mortier. And so dumortierite is, and we pronounce the R because we're not French, but dumortierite is a third eye stone. So it works with opening your channel to your guides, your intuition. It's a stone of the tarot reader, right? We use that one a lot. Dumortierite activates your higher self and helps to stimulate the third eye. It's a wonderful stone for channeling and psychic work. That specifically helps tune psychic abilities to the right frequency, which I love, and it helps connect with the divine. So it's also really good for sleep, for dream work. If you want to recall dreams and you want to remember, or you're doing lucid dreaming, or you're doing astral journeying, or you're doing past life work. So you can work with it for any of those parallel life work. It also bridges like kyanite. It has a very similar kyanite energy. It's strong and it's lovely, and dumortierite often is a stone that is not as easily accessible, but you can totally find dumortierite if you're looking for it. Our next stone, so I usually pull 3 crystals, is spirit quartz. Now, again, another quartz, so we have all 3 of these are silicates, but spirit quartz is an interesting growth of quartz. Okay, so it's sometimes called cactus quartz and appears in a lot of different colors. So you have amethyst spirit quartz, citrine spirit quartz, or clear spirit quartz. And what it is, it's a quartz with a central point that has a faceted termination. Okay, so you like what you imagine a regular quartz looking like, but then below the facets on the top, like in the base. So we'll do a little crystal 101. We're really talking about, okay, so the point is called the apex. Those little points that lead to the apex, to the point, are called facets. When you move down the long part of a quartz crystal, you'll get to the shaft, okay? So we're talking about the shaft now. So the shaft has a bunch of little crystals around it, okay, like hundreds of little stones. So it kind of has all these little quartz points growing out of a central. So it looks almost like a candle. That's why it's sometimes called candle quartz too. You have the point with the facets out of it, and then all these little crystals around. It kind of can look like a druzy, but druzys are much smaller little points, if you can even see the points. So spirit quartz is one of those stones that a lot of people are attracted to because it's just so cool looking. So spirit quartz helps harmonize communities. Okay, again, we were talking about the collective, right? We were talking about the collective with this full moon, And so we can kind of work with that with spirit quartz. Okay. So if you're struggling, like, what is my place in society? Like, I feel so different. I'm a weirdo. Everybody does this. I don't do that. Spirit quartz helps you to harmonize auras and find a place in your community. Okay. Communities need the weirdos. All right. I'm a weirdo and I get along with everybody. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not someone who's like, oh, you know, not going to talk to that guy. I talk to everybody. I don't care what your political beliefs are. I don't care if you're a dick to other people. I try to take people with how they treat me. And so spirit quartz is great for that. I think harmony is a great word to embody the energy of spirit quartz. It really is about looking at how we fit into the collective, the individual in the collective. Okay. So it also is a great stone for cleansing and clearing. And so you can use it after you've been in a situation that's volatile or has a lot of discordant vibration or information, you know, that you're kind of like processing all the negativity. Work with spirit quartz. It brings that like harmony. It also is great when you're working with narcissists and self-absorbed people. It helps to understand like their place in the collective too, right? So this is obviously a great one for the full moon. Sometimes this is called fairy quartz, and that's because it can really attune to the high frequencies of elemental energy as well. So if you are working with elementals like fairies and dryads and earth spirits in the middle world, you can work with spirit quartz. Okay. Now our animal guide for the month, and for those who are part of my membership subscription, you always get a shamanic journey every month. And this month we're working with spider medicine. I love spider medicine. It is a guide of storytelling. It is a guide of kind of patience and waiting for things to come to you, right? So that's a lot of what we're doing this month because everything's retrograde. So we're doing that internal work. It's a symbol of transformation and rebirth, storytelling and opening. And so if you subscribe to my membership group, I really go into the myth of spider, the medicine, the biology, and go down some research rabbit holes, which is truly my joy. Now, we journeyed with spider last year, so this is kind of a revisit of that journey as well. And as always, I'm going to have a medicine bundle with all this medicine for sale in my shop. So if you're a part of my membership group, again, you got Shamanic Journey with Spider this month. You can also, and you can just like buy that Shamanic Journey in my shop as well. For the membership group, you get full moon readings, like a collective full moon reading, collective new moon reading. And we look at the wheel of the year. And I do that on my general podcast. So you'll get that too. And also, you get a free invite to my Q&As every month that I do at the last Wednesday of the month. So if you ever want to attend that, you don't have to have been my student. I love to do research. And that's part of, like, this came up because I used to work for Hibiscus Moon and I would answer questions based on her teachings. And so I did that Q&A every week for 5 years. And so now I kind of thought, I'd love to continue that. So I do it once a month, the last Wednesday of the month. You send me questions. I do a little research. I also answer live, and it can be on anything that is in my wheelhouse. Tarot, psychic work, healing work, shamanic work, history of whatever. I also, of course, love psychology and working with, but I'm very much an armchair psychologist. It's just me doing research, and a lot of it I've already been exposed to, so it doesn't take me long to do that research, but I do try to compile what I know and help get it through. Okay. And if I don't know, I definitely say that, I'm sorry, that's not in my wheelhouse. I can't answer that. But, honestly, I charge $10 to these things, but it's really like a love donation. And I think I might actually change it so you can just enroll. And then if you want to send me money, you can. But, I kind of feel like these are just fun. They introduce you to me as a teacher and how I lead my circles. I mean, honestly, I'm so neurodivergent. I'm just myself all the time. Like what you get here is what you get at home, and like what my kids get and what everybody gets. I'm not great at like changing who I am. But in my membership group, that's a way to support me and become part of my community of, most of us are healers, honestly, psychics, healers. And we do a live circle every Friday morning, and I'm adding a lot of new stuff in the fall. Things like Stitch and Bitch with crafts, like meeting up and doing live sitting meditations, doing some teachings around crystals and healings. And you can see all of that on my website. And this is really just going to be from my membership group. So I'm hoping that you will join me at some point. And my website is themoonandstone.com. Pretty easy. All right. Have a great August. And you'll notice that there's probably 2 podcasts today because it's also Lunazda. So blessed you Lunazda for anyone who practices the pagan wheel of the year. And I'll do a history of that in another podcast. So thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to Centered with me, Angie Yingst. If you'd like to send me a question or comment about this show or any shows, you can send them to Angie at themoonandstone.com.